Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the ever merciful. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord, Creator and Sustainer of all things in existence. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafi anbiya'illahi. And may Allah raise the rank of and grant peace to the most noble of all of the prophets of Allah, Nabiyyina Muhammadin, our Prophet Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, and likewise that of his family and companions, all of them in entirety. Amma ba'd, as for what follows, then we have returned by the grace and permission of Allah Ta'ala alone on this eve of the 21st day of Sha'ban in the year 1437 here at Masjid al-Tawheed, the city of Stone Mountain, Georgia. May Allah Ta'ala bless its administration, all of those who are involved in its activities, and all of those who support the masjid by regular prayers in it and regular attendance and contributions to it. May Allah Ta'ala strengthen its call, purify its call, make it a fantastic place where the deen of Allah Ta'ala spreads with fruits and with success. May Allah Ta'ala give us and all of them that, with sincerity inwardly and conformity outwardly. We begin our session this evening, our second session, in explanation of the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbaas radiyallahu anhu wa an abihi. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with him and his father. And that narration has some criticism in its chain from one route, which is not the narration of Abdullah ibn Abbaas, rather it's the narration of who? We say this hadith has two people that are attributed to this hadith. The hadith of Ibn Abbas and the hadith of who? Amr ibn Maymun al-Awdi, barakallahu fikum. And he is a companion, a tabi'i, barakallahu fikum, and he narrates from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam the very same thing that Abdullah ibn Abbas narrated. So we know that his mursal is accurate and precise, and even though he narrates it without mentioning who the companion is that he heard from, or the tabi'i that heard from the companion, whatever the case may be, we understand that his narration is correct by comparing it to other narrations that have authentic chains. And so we accept it, as mentioned yesterday. Barakallahu feekum. This evening, as we begin, as I mentioned last night, we would have to pick up a little bit where we left off last night and complete that topic. Just before we do so, I'd like to introduce to you a verse from the book of Allah Ta'ala and ask our young people to pay attention to this verse and to tell me where in this verse is the connection to a Muslim and his duty to watch his time and to be mindful of his time. Are my young brothers paying attention here? You ready? You know the question? Listen for, in this verse, something that indicates the importance of a Muslim watching his time carefully. Here's the verse. It's from Surah Ibrahim. Allah Ta'ala says, قُلْ لِعِبَادِي الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Say, O Muhammad, to my servants, those who believe, يُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, let them establish the prayer. وَيُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ, and let them spend from what we have provided them with, سِرًّا وَعَلَانِيَةً, secretly and openly. مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ يَوْمٌ, before a day comes, لَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ وَلَا خِلَالٌ, no buying, no trade on that day, and no friendships that will save a person, no connections that could help a person on that day. Allahu alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal-ard. The verse goes on, or the next verse after it. Allah is the one who created the heavens and the earth. وَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً, and He sent down from the heavens water, meaning rain. فَأَخْرَجَ بِهِ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ رِزْقًا لَكُمْ, and He has brought forth from it fruits as provision for you. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الْفُلْكَ, and He has put in your service al-fulk, ships that travel on the ocean. لِتَجْرِيَ فِي الْبَحْرِ بِأَمْرِهِ, and they travel upon the ocean by His command. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الْأَنْهَارِ, and He has put in your service rivers as well. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ دَائِبَيْنِ, and He has put in your service the sun and the moon in alternation, coming one after the other. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارِ, and He has put in your service the night and the day. وَآتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ, and He has given you some things from everything that you have asked for. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا, and if you were to try to enumerate the blessings of Allah, you would never be able to count them. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَظَلُومٌ كَثَّارٌ, verily mankind is oppressive and disbelieving. Young men, in these verses, where do we have some indication that we should be mindful of our time? Young men, under 18. Now, the first one, before a day comes, we've been ordered to give from what Allah Ta'ala provides us with before a day comes. That means, اغتنم, take advantage of this time that you have now in front of you. Ahsan, before a day comes. Ahsan. May Allah Ta'ala bless you and your family. There's another one in there too. In the same series of verses, there's another indication about the importance of time. Muhammad. What's that? In the back. Al-layla wal-nahara. Allah yubarak. Muhammad, you were going to say that? Barakallahu feekum. Allahumma barik lakum. And the mention of Allah Ta'ala putting in our service the night and the day. Allah Ta'ala put in your service the night and the day. It's there for you. The night and the day is what? It's al-asr, it's al-fajr, it's al-layl, it's al-duha. It's those things in the Quran that Allah has sworn by. It's in your service. It's for you. Allah has made it for you. Allah didn't make it as some separate creation that just exists and it happens to exist along in your realm that you've been created within. Rather, that's in your service. What are you going to do with it? So the night and the day are in your service. Take advantage of them before they're no longer in your service, before they're no longer something you can use for your benefit. And remember, in Surah Al-Furqan, Allah Ta'ala also mentions this idea. What is it? وَهُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ خِلْفَةً لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يَذَّكَّرَ أَوْ أَرَادَ شُكُورًا. And He's the one who made the night and the day khilfa, alternating one after the next, for the one who wants to be reminded, for the one who wants to reflect, and the one who wants to be thankful. May Allah Ta'ala make us from those who reflect and those who are thankful. Allahumma ameen. So we return to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at this time, Shababaka qabla haramik. Your youth, take advantage of your youth before your old age. And just before entering, two corrections from yesterday. One correction was mentioned to me by a brother and I forgot who he was. And that is the thulathi verb based from اغتنم is ghanima. And I mentioned what yesterday? Ghanama with a fatha on the noon. So ghanima. Being concerned with our vocabulary, all of that, and the precision of our language is essential. It's important for all of those who wish to understand the deen properly, that they always busy themselves with trying to understand the vocabulary of the verses and the ahadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The other one is the word saqam. That it's correct to say saqam with a fatha on the qaf. No problem. Saqam. That is correct. And I said yesterday it may be a language that I'm unaware of, and it is actually correct. And I was unaware of that yesterday. So moving to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, take advantage of your youth before your old age. Yesterday we mentioned the hadith of the 7 that are in the shade, the 7 categories of people under the shade of Allah Ta'ala. Young men, which one of the 7 is directly related to take advantage of your youth before your old age? Young men under 18 only. Naam. A young man raised in the worship of his Lord. A young man raised to be a worshipper of Allah Ta'ala. Right? The young man being raised, what? That means he has parents that are teaching him to worship Allah Ta'ala, pushing him towards that, discouraging him and keeping him away from all that distracts him away from that. Take advantage of your youth before your old age. This may come as something very enlightening to you, and it's something that you may be reciting daily without thinking much of the wording. But there's something from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that should be part of our lives every day, that has us looking for protection from feeble old age. Meaning that we beg Allah to protect us from an old age where we're no longer able to perform worship, we're no longer able to remember things, the feeble old age. Where is that? A daily supplication.
When reciting in the salah after tashahhud, you recite
Protection
from the grave, protection from evil-mindedness, protection from
Min fitnat al-mahya wal-mamat, maybe you mean. The fitna of living and dying, which under the generality of which would be getting old and becoming senile or something along these lines. Barakallahu fikum. More specific than this. I can't say incorrect, but more specific than this. Naam, akhi. The dua of the morning and the evening. I think we're getting very close. Where is it specifically in that dua? Min su' al-kibar. Now, I want to share with you, rehearse with you, review with you the dua of the morning and the evening, so that you understand that it's something the Messenger himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, used to use, and it has within it begging Allah Ta'ala for protection from feeble old age, which in it indicates what? The importance of appreciating your youth, appreciating your good health, your mind, your faculties, and all of that. Al-Imam Muslim, rahimahullah ta'ala, brings in his Sahih, authentic compilation with his isnad all the way to Abdullah. Who's Abdullah when mentioned without any connection to a father or anything? Who's that Abdullah? There are many Abdullahs from the companions. Abdullah bin Umar, a very prominent companion, but it's not him. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Naam ahsantum, barakallahu feek. In the language of most of the scholars, without any specification, Abdullah is Abdullah bin Mas'ud, radiyallahu anhu. He said, كان نبي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أمسى. He said the Prophet, when night time would come, may Allah raise his rank and grant him peace, قال, he would say, أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله. We've entered into the evening, and the entire dominion has entered into the evening time as property, as dominion, as owned property of Allah Ta'ala. Walhamdulillah, and all praise is due to Allah. La ilaha illallah, none deserve worship other than Allah. Wahdahu la sharika lahu, He's alone in that right, sharing it with none, having no partner. Lahul mulku, to Him or for Him is the ownership of everything. Walahul hamdu, and to Him is the praise. Wahuwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, and He is above all things, all capable. Rabbi as'aluka khayra ma fi hadhihi al-layla. My Lord, I ask you for the good of what's in this evening. what's in this night. وَخَيْرَ مَا بَعْدَهَا, and the good of what comes after it. وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا فِي هَذِهِ اللَّيْلَةِ, and I seek refuge with you from the evil of what is within this evening. وَشَرِّ مَا بَعْدَهَا, and the evil of what comes after it. رَبِّ أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنَ الْكَسَلِ, O my Lord, I seek refuge with you from kasal, laziness. وَسُوءِ الْكِبَرِ, and feeble old age, decrepit old age, debilitating old age. رَبِّ أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ عَذَابٍ فِي النَّارِ, O my Lord, I seek refuge with you from a punishment in the fire. وَعَذَابٍ فِي الْقَبْرِ, and from a punishment in the grave. And of course in the morning time, that's the evening time. In the morning time it's the same dua with some very minor adjustments. Instead of amsayna, it's asbahna. Instead of hadhihi layla, it's hadha al-yawm, and so on. From the generality of this dua being repeated day after day, morning and evening, look at how the tongue leads the way for a person to make this igtinam, trying to take advantage of his time. That each and every morning, a person upon this sunnah, a great sunnah that how many of us really stick to. May Allah Ta'ala aid me and all of you to be more devout in our following of this great messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The person who's trying to get the best out of his day, why wouldn't he beg Allah Ta'ala for the good of his day and beg Allah Ta'ala for refuge from the evil that's in that day? And then the evening time comes, Salat al-Asr, and the evening approaches. He begins to make this dua amsayna. The evening, we've entered into the evening now. And he makes the same dua, begging Allah for the good of the night, the good of everything that's in that night, asking Him for it, and asking for protection and refuge from the evil that's within the night. Again, the day and the night. That's your time. That's your life. Right? That's what you have here in this world. And imagine the one who begs Allah Ta'ala daily, not just rattling off some supplication on his tongue without focusing on the meaning, but his heart is with his supplication, and he's really begging. In the meaning of begging, he's really begging his Lord for the good of the day, the good of the night, for refuge from the evil of the day and the evil of the night, and what comes after it, after the morning and after the night, and so on. The tongue is leading the way. The tongue is leading the way. And in the narration of our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that each and every day the son of Adam enters the morning, al-a'da kullaha tukaffiru al-lisan, all of the body parts, they make takfir of the tongue. They issue a severe warning to the tongue. They say, ittaqillaha fina, fear Allah regarding us. From the world of the unseen that we don't hear, the language and the discussion, the discourse that we don't hear but we believe in firmly as it comes from our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Fear Allah regarding us. In istaqamti, istaqamna, or in istaqamta, istaqamna. If you, the tongue, if you're upright, if you have istiqamah, then we'll be upright, meaning we follow you. Taqillaha fina wa innama nahnu bik. That's the phrase there, huh? As we are in suit or following right along with you. If you're upright, then we'll be upright. وَإِنْ إِعْوَجَجْتَ إِعْوَجَجْنَا. And if you're crooked, and if you're deviating, then we will be crooked and deviating. So when the tongue is the leader, it leads the way with supplications, with begging Allah for the good of the day and the good of what's after the day. Begging Allah for refuge from the evil of the day and from the evil of what comes after the day. It's very easy to believe that such a person will be busy taking advantage of his hours, busy not wasting his time, because his supplication has led the way. Just like the one, and I remind you as well about traveling and making that dua for traveling. When you ask Allah Ta'ala in the beginning of your journey, as many of you are travelers, when you say what? Allahumma inna nas'aluka fi safarina hadha al-birra wa taqwa. And the rest of the dua. We ask you, O Allah, on this journey of ours for piety and righteousness. Bir, the performance of good deeds. Taqwa, the resistance and staying away from things that are destructive and harmful. Both forms of piety. When a person does this, is it befitting that he begins his journey with this supplication and then disobeys Allah Ta'ala throughout the journey? It's not befitting. He leads the way with his supplication. He would be ashamed to beg Allah with sincerity in his heart and then just fall into anything and then just give in to any whim. The same with the day and the night. When you beg Allah Ta'ala for the good of it and the good of what comes after it, then it's highly likely that you'll be a person, haris, you'll be vigilant about what benefits you in that day. And may Allah Ta'ala protect us from what harms us. The reality of our bodies, physical bodies, human bodies, what happens? As the years go on, as the decades go on, and a man reaches his 40s, 50s, and 60s, what happens? His systems begin to fail. One thing fails, another thing fails. After that, Allah Ta'ala did not make us to go on living without any failure in our own system. And the reality of that is in front of us. Each and every person has that in front of him. You will die of something. You will die of a car accident, or you will die of liver failure, or you will die of a heart attack, or you'll die of something. If one system doesn't fail you, another is going to fail you, because we haven't been created to be here forever. Knowing that, what? Take advantage of your good health before your illness, which is our point today, which is coming up. From the book I promised you yesterday, just before we go into good health, taking advantage of your good health, from the book of Al-Imam Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dunya, Kalamu al-Layali wal-Ayami, the speech of the days and the night, a book of about 60 narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions and the tabi'een. I'll mention to you 5 narrations here that have been selected for us to benefit from regarding our time. And that first one, the first one I'll mention to you here is the statement, the poetry of Mahmud ibn al-Hasan al-Warraq, rahimahullah ta'ala, the poet, the famous poet, who said, مَضَى أَمْسُكَ الْمَاضِي شَهِيدًا مُعَدَّلًا. Your yesterday of the past has gone as a witness that is upright and trusted, as a witness against you or for you. وَأَعْقَبَهُ يَوْمٌ عَلَيْكَ جَدِيدُ. And that day has brought about another day which is new and it's on you. فَإِن كُنْتَ بِالْأَمْسِ اقْتَرَفْتَ إِسَاءَةً. If it is that yesterday you fell into some evil, you took on some evil behavior, فَثَنِّ بِإِحْسَانٍ وَأَنْتَ حَمِيدُ. Then pair that with something of good, some benevolence, some kindness, some ihsan, some action of piety and sincerity to Allah Ta'ala, and you will be a person who is praiseworthy. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, أَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا. And follow up the bad deed with a good one, it will wipe it away. What good advice that is, to follow up something with something that is good. فَيَوْمُكَ إِنْ أَعْتَبْتَهُ عَادَ نَفْعُهُ عَلَيْكَ وَمَاضِي الْأَمْسِ لَيْسَ يَعُودُ. And your day, if you use it to your advantage and try to capture its benefit, it will come to you. The benefit will come to you. But as for the past of yesterday, that's not coming back. وَلَا تُرْجِ فِعْلَ الْخَيْرِ يَوْمًا إِلَى غَدٍ. And don't put off the action of good for another day, for غَدًا, for tomorrow. لَعَلَّ غَدًا يَأْتِي وَأَنْتَ فَقِيدُ. It may be that tomorrow comes and you are missing. Meaning, you have passed and you are not available. Subhanallah. Beautiful poetry. Secondly, the statement of Abu Darda from the book of Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dunya. He narrates that Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu, the illustrious companion, said, مَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ إلا وفي عقله نقص عن حلمه وعلمه. None of us exists except that his intellect is deficient as it relates to his character and his knowledge. There's a deficiency in his intellect. وَذَلِكَ, what is it? And that is, أَنَّهُ إِذَا أَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا بِزِيَادَةٍ فِي مَالٍ. If dunya comes to him, some worldly thing comes to him with an increase of money, ظَلَّ فَرِحًا مَسْرُورًا. He goes on being joyful and happy because of the increase. وَاللَّيْلُ وَالنَّهَارُ دَائِبَانِ فِي هَدْمِ عُمُرِهِ. As the day and the night go on destroying his lifespan, meaning taking away from his lifespan. ثُمَّ لَا يُحْزِنُهُ ذَلِكَ. And then, with this being the reality that yes, his wealth increased, but the days and nights have passed in order for that to happen. And that doesn't make him sad at all. That doesn't cause him any problems. ضَلَّ ضَلَالَةً. Such a person has gone astray. He has been misled a bit. He has been misled somewhat. مَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ يَزِيدُ وَعُمَرٌ يَنْفَدُ. It's not that money increasing is beneficial whilst the lifespan is being taken away. Whilst one's lifespan is getting shorter and shorter. You find many of the Salaf, they used to consider the days and the hours of the lifespan more precious than money, more serious than money, more of a wealth than actual money. The third statement we have is from Mufaddal ibn Yunus, someone, a virtuous man who the scholars of Ahl Sunnah said when he passed that they mentioned the great amount of good going with this man. And he said, or he would say at night time, ذَهَبَ مِنْ عُمْرِي يَوْمٌ كَامِلٌ. When night would come, part of my life has gone. An entire day of my life is gone. فَإِذَا أَصْبَحَ. And when the morning came, he would say, قَالَ ذَهَبَتْ لَيْلَةٌ كَامِلَةٌ مِنْ عُمْرِي. He would say, what? An entire night of my life is gone. فَلَمَّا احْتَضَرَ. At the time of his death, when death was close to him, بَكَى وَقَى. He cried. And he said, قَدْ كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ أَنَّ لِي مِنْ كَرِّكُمَا عَلَيَّ يَوْمًا شَدِيدًا كَرْبُهُ. I knew that your return, you're coming back to me. The two of you, who are they? The day and the night. I knew that you two returning back on me would be a day of despair or a day of great regret and difficulty. شَدِيدًا غَمُّهُ. A day of great sadness. فَلَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا الَّذِي قَضَى الْمَوْتَ عَلَى خَلْقِهِ. So I testify that none has the right to be worshipped other than the one who has made a verdict upon his creation that they must die. وَجَعَلَهُ عَدْلًا بَيْنَ عِبَادِهِ. And he has made that to be a point of justice that is established amongst his servants. ثُمَّ جَعَلَ يَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنَ. And then he began to read the Qur'an. الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْغَفُورُ. The one who created death and life in order to test you, to see which of you are better in deeds, while he is the most mighty and the all-forgiving, from Surah Al-Mulk, as you know. ثُمَّ تَنَفَّسَ فَمَاتَ. And then upon reading this verse, he breathed and died. He breathed a kind of difficult breathing and he passed away. That was who? Mufaddal ibn Yusuf. Another statement from Mufaddal ibn Yusuf about what he had seen from others. That is, رَأَيْتُ أَخَى بَنِ الْحَارِثِ Muhammad ibn al-Nadr. I saw Muhammad ibn Nadr from the tribe of Bani Harith. الْيَوْمَ كَئِيبًا حَزِينًا. And I saw him sad, downtrodden one day. فَقُلْتُ مَا شَأْنُكَ وَمَا أَمْرُكَ. So I said to him, what is your situation? What's with you? قَالَ مَضَتِ اللَّيْلَةُ مِنْ عُمْرِي. A night of my lifespan has gone away. وَلَمْ أَكْتَسِبْ فِيهَا لِنَفْسِي شَيْئًا. and I gained no benefit for myself in that night. وَيَمْضِي الْيَوْمُ أَيْضًا. And today, this day right now is passing away. It's going away now. وَلَا أَرَانِي أَكْتَسِبُ فِيهِ شَيْئًا. And I don't see myself gaining any benefit. فَإِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. So he said, we are the property of Allah, and we are all returning to Him. Subhanallah. And on the authority of Malik ibn Mighwal, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, كَانَ رَجُلٌ إِذَا رَأَى اللَّيْلَ مُقْبِلًا بَكَى. A man, meaning from those pious people who would reflect much when they saw nighttime coming, they would cry, وَقَالَ هَذَا يُمِيتُنِي. They would say, this is killing me, meaning the passing of the days and the nights. Today we're saying we're killing time. Today our children, they play games and they do things in order to pass the time. And they say, I'm just killing time. And yet time is, in essence, killing them while they don't know. And may Allah Ta'ala save us. Remember that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, according to the narration of Abu Barzata al-Aslami radiyallahu anhu, and also from the narration of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, the narration of Abu Barza collected by at-Tirmidhi, and the narration of Ibn Mas'ud collected by at-Tirmidhi as well. Abu Barza's hadith is that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة. The foot of a servant shall not move from its place on the day of judgment, حتى يسأل عن, until he is asked about عمره فيما أفناه. He's asked about his lifespan and what he spent it on. وعن علمه فيما فعل. And he'll be asked about his knowledge and what he did with it. وعن ماله. And he'll be asked about his wealth. من أين اكتسبه. From where did he earn it? وفيما أنفقه. And upon what or in what did he spend it? وعن جسمه فيما أبلاه. And he'll be asked about his body and what he wasted it away with, what he has done, what he has spent his physical health doing. We ask Allah Ta'ala for safety. In the narration of Ibn Mas'ud, he mentioned the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam used the word shabab, his youth. He said, لا تزول قدم ابن آدم يوم القيامة من عند ربه. That the son of Adam, his foot shall not move from its place on the day of judgment with his Lord. حتى يسأل عن خمس. Until he's asked about 5 things. And he adds that's not in the narration of Abu Barza, that he said 5 things. The first one, عن عمره فيما أفناه, his lifespan and what he spent it on. وعن شبابه فيما أبلاه. And regarding his youth and what he spent it on as well. وماله من أين اكتسبه وفيما أنفقه. And his wealth, where he got it from, how he earned it and how he spent it. وماذا عمل فيما علم. And what he did according to what he knew, what he did based on the knowledge that he had. Brothers, sihha is important. The health that we have, the good health that Allah Ta'ala has blessed us with, is essential that we recognize it and that we thank Allah Ta'ala for this good health. As we move into the second important matter to take advantage of, and that is, take advantage وَصِحَّتَكَ قَبَّلَ سَقَامِكَ. Take advantage of your health before your illness, meaning before a time when illness overtakes you and you are no longer able to fulfill things. Our Shaykh Al-Allama Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, فِي الصِّحَّةِ نَشَاطٌ وَانْبِسَاطٌ. In good health, there is activity and the ease of doing things. فَإِذَا مَرِضَ الْإِنسَانُ انْحَطَّ نَشَاطُهُ وَضَاقَتْ نَفْسُهُ. And once a person becomes sick, his activity drops off. and he becomes constricted within his soul. وَثَقُلَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْأَعْمَالِ, and deeds now become very heavy and difficult for him to do. The Prophet ﷺ, in a number of narrations and in many admonitions, he combined reminders about these 2 points. The first point being what? Your time. And the second point being now your health, taking advantage of your health. In the most obvious and most famous and most well-known hadith combining these 2 matters specifically is a very prolific statement that he made, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, also narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbaas radiyallahu anhuma, as collected by Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih authentic compilation. He said that the Prophet, may Allah raise his rank and grant him peace, said, نِعْمَتَانِ مَغْبُونٌ فِيهِمَا كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. There are 2 ni'mas, 2 blessings. Of course, the blessings of Allah are many, but there are 2 specifically that so many people are deluded about. They're tricked into not recognizing them and not taking advantage of them. They're maghboon. What are they? As-sihhatu wal-faragh. They are good health and free time. Good health and free time. Again, the hadith was collected by Al-Imam al-Bukhari. Maghboonun, from what? Al-ghaban. You study fiqh, you know al-ghaban. There's the word ghaban that comes up in lots of transactions. And you hear in many fatawa, the scholars saying, this is muharram because it's ghaban. What does that mean, ghaban? Ghaban is something unfair, imbalanced, something that leads to loss, something that causes you to forget, something that makes you forgetful and leads you into loss. Trickery in transactions that make a person not pay attention to something. Like, for example, someone gives you a contract and he tells you it's a simple contract for a sale and it's got all these conditions. All kinds of riba and all kinds of impermissible conditions are laden in the contract. He just wants you to sign and be done with the contract. Ghaban wants to trick you out of much of your wealth, right? In an act of deception, making you forget about the importance of reading your stipulations, reading the stipulations to the contracts you agree to. They're all binding upon you. And then he takes advantage of you through some of those stipulations. Ghaban. Right? The trickery that goes on in the grocery stores. They have you buy a card that shows your loyalty to the grocery store, and they give you special sales, and then they allow you to enter certain competitions, and all of it is based on ghaban, and our scholars warn us against these kinds of competitions and raffles and giveaways through your membership to the store and all of that. It all involves on some level a ghaban, trickery, right? Unfair dealing where they trick you into something and take advantage of you. So ghaban, they say in the Arabic language, ghabn with a sukun on the ba is regarding physical things, physical trickery. And ghaban with a fatha on the ba is regarding ideas. Same meaning though, trickery. Maghboonun is the one who's been tricked out of something, is the one who's been made to be forgetful and to lose out on something. He's maghboon. Maghboon. One of the names of the Day of Judgment is what? Connected to ghaban. Yawm al-taghabun. Yawm al-taghabun. Imagine. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَعْمَالُهُمْ كَسَرَابٍ بِقِيعَةٍ يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاءً حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَهُ لَمْ يَجِدْهُ شَيْئًا. The example of the disbelievers is like a mirage. The thirsty person sees it and he thinks there's water, and when he gets there, there's nothing there. وَوَجَدَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ فَوَفَّاهُ حِسَابَهُ وَاللَّهُ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. And he finds Allah there. And the disbeliever finds on the Day of Judgment Allah Ta'ala punishing him. And Allah is swift in judgment. مثل الذين كفروا أعمالهم كرماد اشتدت به الريح في يوم عاصف أيوة لا يقدرون مما كسبوا من شيء ذلك هو الضلال البعيد. The example of the disbelievers and their actions is like some dust that blows away. They are not able to gain any advantage or any benefit from all that they have done, right? In any way. And that is the severe or the real kind of misguidance, the far off misguidance. They may be amilatun nasiba. They may be people of dedicated and repeated worship and actions, but without ikhlas and mutaba'ah, without tawheed, without singling out Allah as the object of worship, without sincerity in the heart and conformity on the limbs. What is it? It's ghaban from the shaitan. Right? He's maghboon. He thinks he has actions. Amilatun nasiba tasla naran hamiya. And he enters, after having this levels of dedicated actions, he enters a blazing fire. After thinking he has something. Maghboon. That's the day of taghabun. The day when the believers enter paradise. The day when the disbelievers, no matter what they have of charity and good deeds, what they think to be good deeds, they enter the hellfire. May Allah Ta'ala save us from that day and give us safety and refuge with Him. This hadith of two things that people are tricked into losing out on, deceived by or deceived through these two things, ni'mah, siha and faragh, good health and free time. It's that they did not take advantage of their good health and they didn't use it to worship Allah Ta'ala in their time and their years of good health, and so therefore they lost it and they are maghboon. They have lost out. It has passed them up. They have lost it. Likewise, their free time. Their time has gone away from them, and now they are incapable of performing any good deeds because they are busied with matters. Either busied with things in this life or busied with the affairs of the hereafter. Either case applies. Al-Hafiz Ibn Rajab said in explanation of the hadith of ni'matani maghbunun fihima kathirun min an-nas, two things that many people lose out on, they are sihha and faragh, they are good health and free time. He said, فَهَذِهِ النِّعَمْ مِمَّا يُسْأَلُ الْإِنسَانُ مِمَّا يُسْأَلُ الْإِنسَانُ عَنْ شُكْرِهَا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. These are blessings which people will be asked about on the day of judgment, about their gratitude regarding them. وَيُطْلَبُ وَيُطَالَبُ بِهَا كَمَا قَالَ تَعَالَى. And they will be brought forth and requested to, or they will be brought forth regarding these matters, as Allah Ta'ala has said, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. And then you shall surely be questioned on that day about an-na'im. An-na'im, joyful things, blissful things, delights. Here, you're going to hear from some of the Salaf what the meaning of this na'im that you will surely be asked about on the day of judgment. وخرج الترمذي وابن حبان من حديث أبي هريرة. Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab says, Al-Tirmidhi, Al-Imam Al-Tirmidhi and Al-Imam Ibn Hibban, they brought a hadith in their collections from the narration of Abu Hurairah عن النبي, on the authority of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, may Allah raise his rank and grant him peace. قال إن أول ما يسأل العبد عنه يوم القيامة من النعيم. Verily, the first thing that a servant will be asked about on the day of judgment of delights, na'im, delights that he enjoyed. فيقول له ألم نصح لك جسمك ونرويك من الماء البارد. Did we not give your body health? Did we not provide for your body good health and give you cold water to drink? Did we not give you drink from cold water? Did we not allow you to satisfy your thirst with cold water? With cold water. Subhanallah. وقال ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه And Ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, said, "An-na'imu al-amnu was-sihha." The na'im that you'll be asked about is safety and good health. وَرُوِيَ عَنْهُ مَرْفُوعًا. That's also been narrated as a hadith. وَقَالَ Ali. And in general, when the scholars mention a statement of a companion, and then they say, وَرُوِيَ مَرْفُوعًا, and it's been narrated, marfu'an, as a hadith of the Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that means what's authentic is that it should be attributed to the companion. However, it's been narrated as a hadith of the Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. قال علي بن أبي طلحة عن ابن عباس. And Ali ibn Abi Talha narrates from Ibn Abbas. The chain is actually disconnected, but it's something that you find throughout the books of tafsir, the tafsir of Ibn Abbas. في قوله, regarding his statement, the statement of Allah, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. And then you shall be surely asked about the delights. قال النعيم صحة الأبدان. In this narration attributed to Ibn Abbas, he said that delight is the good health of your bodies, or the good health of the physical bodies. وَالْأَسْمَاعِ وَالْأَبْصَارِ. And hearing and eyesight. يَسْأَلُ اللَّهُ الْعِبَادِ. يَسْأَلُ اللَّهُ الْعِبَادَ. Allah shall ask the servants فِي مَا اسْتَعْمَلُوهَا, regarding what they have used those things for. وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِذَلِكَ مِنْهُمْ. While he is more knowledgeable regarding those things than they are. وَهُوَ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ. And that is the statement of Allah the Most High, verily the hearing, the eyesights, and the chests. كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. All of those matters shall be asked about. We ask Allah Ta'ala to bring us to account with a good, easy account. If we were to think carefully about the blessing of one of the many blessings connected to our good health, since eyesight has come up, think of eyesight. Think of what it means to have eyesight, and think of what it means to lose eyesight. The small organ, the two organs in your face, two small balls in your eye sockets. All of the things connected to them, the nerves, the rods and the cones inside, the interpretation of lights and colors being sent, to you to understand the things in front of you. All of these blessings right here. In reality, if you lost your eyesight, what of your life savings, how much of your life savings would you pay if there was a doctor who could restore your eyesight through a surgery by the permission of Allah? How much? If you own 10 million in estates and in savings and everything, how much of the 10 million would you pay? After thinking about it, people might say 5 million. Then if I asked you, you would not pay 6 million? You would keep 5 million in the bank, or keep 5 million without eyesight? And they would say, no, I would give all of it. Name any number and the person will give all of it to have his eyesight back. We can't put a price on eyesight. We can't even do so. We can't even say eyesight is valued at such and such amount. We cannot do that. For a person to lose his eyesight and never see his wife and never see his children again, never see the beautiful things in nature and so on, how could he replace that? And why would he want to hold on to anything in his life that he could use to spend to get his eyesight back if that were possible? Subhanallah. Then are we thankful for this blessing? In general, when we assess ourselves, when we do muhasabah and hold ourselves to account, and we ask ourselves, reminding ourselves of the bounties of Allah and His favors upon us, we ask ourselves, are we thankful? Not like a theory, not that a verbal answer will do. Yes, I'm thankful. I say Alhamdulillah and I pray. The real answer lies in how you use that blessing. And it's not your claim that you're grateful about your eyesight. That's not what counts. What counts is what you do with those eyes. So for a person who destroys himself and destroys his morality and his integrity by going online and looking at whatever his eyes lands on, may Allah Ta'ala save us. then could such a person claim he's grateful for the eyes that Allah Ta'ala has given him? La, kafir, kufr ni'am. He's an ingrate. And I say kafir here, meaning the lesser kufr of ingratitude. He's an ingrate to Allah Ta'ala. Because Allah Ta'ala has provided him with this thing which he would give up everything he owns to replace if he could, if it were lost. Yet he uses it in matters that anger his Lord and destroy his own soul in this life and in the next life. And our youth are facing this great trial in front of them with this ease of access to the filth that the world has chosen to make a priority to pass around in their digital media and to make available on a wide scale. We beg Allah Ta'ala to protect us from it. We beg Allah Ta'ala for His refuge from such filth. If our youth, if we and our youth, and I don't want to focus on the youth only, the 50, 60-year-old men, maghboonun, they're being drawn into these things. So then, if that's the case with people with gray hair being drawn into things like this, what about the youth with all their desire, with all their energy, with all their, all their youthfulness and so on? May Allah Ta'ala protect all of us. If we and our youth could protect our eyes, realizing the blessing of our good health, and hoping to attain thankfulness to Allah and gratitude, preserve our eyes, turn away from things and shut down devices, and turn away from things and establish policies in our houses that don't allow for seclusion and for opportunities for the shaitan to come to the hearts and lead people down terrible paths. If we could do so, then Allah Ta'ala will preserve us. Because His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam has said, "Ihfadhillaha yahfadhka." Preserve, literally, preserve Allah. The meaning, be conscious of, be vigilant about, and observe the limits of Allah, fulfilling the orders that have been directed to you and staying away from the prohibitions. Knowing the hudud of Allah, the limits set by Allah, honoring them, recognizing them, and observing them in your practice. That's your hifz of Allah, your muhafadha li hududillah, that you preserve the limits of Allah in your life and in your practice. If you do so, jawabul amr, yahfadhka, it's majzoom, because it's the response to if you fulfill that. If you do so, then Allah will preserve you. And Allah will preserve you. It's been left general like that. As the scholars have said, Allah will preserve your wealth. Allah will preserve your health. Allah will preserve your eyesight, your faculties into your old age, into your years. Allah will preserve your lineage after you. Allah Ta'ala will preserve you from ways that you don't even imagine. Allah Ta'ala will protect and preserve you. وَالْجَزَاءُ مِنْ جِنْسِ الْعَمَلِ. Because of your preservation, you're honoring the limits of Allah. Allah preserves you. It's been mentioned in the books, in the biographies, regarding one of the early scholars who lived up to 102. He lived to be 102 years. In his last few years, he was known to be sharp in his eyesight, extremely clear eyesight, sharp hearing, a man of 100 years old. Memory, very sharp memory. His name was Abu Tayyib al-Tabari. Abu Tayyib al-Tabari. He's not al-Tabari, the author of the tafsir. Abu Tayyib al-Tabari. And so, one day he was encountered about this. How is it that you are so old, yet perfect eyesight, sharp hearing, mind, like a trap, as they say, and so on? They encountered him. How is it that this has become the case? And he said, هذه جوارح حفظناها عن المعاصي في الصغر. These body parts, we have preserved, meaning I have preserved them. I honored the limits of Allah. I obeyed Allah and didn't transgress the limits set by Allah in my youth. فَحَفِظَهَا اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا فِي الْكِبَرِ. And so as a result, Allah Ta'ala has preserved them for me in my old age. Allahu Akbar. If we can busy ourselves while we have good health, using that good health to worship Allah Ta'ala, to establish Allah's worship alone, and to shun disobedience, then Allah Ta'ala will preserve these things even in this life. In our old age, we'll be able to enjoy good health, eyesight, hearing, and so on. And we see with the best of Allah's servants, the scholars of Ahl Sunnah, we see this even today. We see scholars living into their 90s with good health, with sharp, more importantly, sharp intellects. Today, who is it that's able to pick up on the deviations and the innovation of the people and remind the ummah about the obligation of staying away from those deviations and those hidden traps of the people of deviation in their speech and in their writings? Is the elder scholars. The elder scholars. When the young men on TV, the entertainers, the popular ones with millions of followers, everything's just fine, let's all come together and be happy and let's tell stories and let's be happy. You find the elders are looking, the elder scholars of Ahl Sunnah, those looked to and those needed for their insight at their old age, late 80s and in 90s. They're the ones that pick up on things that the whole ummah misses. Allahu Akbar. We say likely because of their preservation and their usage of their intellects and their good health in the obedience of Allah Ta'ala throughout their lives, from their youth all the way to their old age. I'll mention to you in closing here, the statement of Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab in explanation of this hadith, احفظ الله يحفظك, preserve the limits of Allah and He will preserve you. He said, وَمَنْ حَفِظَهُ اللَّهُ فِي صِبَاهُ وَقُوَّتِهِ وَمَنْ حَفِظَ اللَّهَ في صباه وقوته حفظه الله في حال كبره وضعف قوته. Whoever is able to preserve the limits of Allah Ta'ala in his youth and in the time of his strength, then Allah Ta'ala will preserve him in his old age and in times when he's weak. وَمَتَّعَهُ بِسَمْعِهِ وَبَصَرِهِ. He will give him the ability to enjoy and use his hearing and his eyesight, وَحَوْلِهِ وَقُوَّتِهِ, and his abilities and his strengths, وَعَقْلِهِ, and his intellect. Then he mentioned the story of Abu al-Tayyib al-Tabari, and in his book Jami'ul Ulumi wal Hikam, which is his explanation of the 40 hadith, he mentioned the story without a name, and he has another book in explanation of this hadith specifically called Nurul Iqtibasi من مشكات وصايا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لعبد الله ibn Abbaas. Ibn Rajab explained this hadith specifically in an entire book. And in that book, because it's more expensive, he mentioned the name of the person that he was talking about, Abu Tayyib al-Tabari. And then he said after the story of Abu Tayyib, the one who he lived to be 102, enjoying sharp faculties, vision and hearing and good intellect, all the way until his final days. Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab said, وَعَكْسُ هَذَا أَنَّ بَعْضَ السَّلَفِ رَأَى شَيْخًا. And the opposite of this as well is true, that some of the Salaf witnessed an old man, يَسْأَلُ النَّاسِ, begging the people, فَقَالَ إِنَّ هَذَا ضَعِيفٌ ضَيَّعَ اللَّهَ فِي صِغَرِهِ. This is a weak person that in his youth he lost out in terms of preserving Allah Ta'ala. He failed to establish the worship of Allah Ta'ala correctly. فَضَيَّعَهُ اللَّهُ فِي كِبَرِهِ. So Allah Ta'ala caused him to be lost in his old age. I mentioned to you last night the case of that despicable man. It's his name, Nazim Haqqani. And you find him, Nazim, I don't know, Nazim Haqqani, the Naqshbandi figurehead. and his grumbling and mumbling and cursing and swearing against and insulting and abusing the Muslims. And you just see, subhanAllah, as I mentioned to you, his face and his image looks like the person, looks like somebody who could be a scholar of that age, looks like a person who could be respectable and might say something of wisdom. And he's grumbling and mumbling like an old person that has no sense, just a senile person. And you see, this is the Sufi who spent his youth, he spent his whole life in innovation, in acts of innovation and deviation. Didn't establish the worship of Allah upon the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Compare this elder Naqshbandi deviant to the likes of our senior scholars who are alive today, teaching classes day and night, reciting the book of Allah from memory, reciting a hadith from memory, being able to pinpoint weaknesses in chains of transmissions in their 80s and 90s. Subhanallah, precise speech full of wisdom and insight from someone who may resemble what that one looks like. Yet Allah Ta'ala has clearly preserved this one and not preserved that one. We ask Allah Ta'ala to preserve us and our children upon His obedience, to grant us success in attaining the station of gratitude, in statement, in action, in fulfilling what Allah Ta'ala has ordered us, and in refraining from what He has forbidden us from. هذا والله أعلم وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. And just before we call the iqamah, if there's a correction of an error I made, then I'd like to be informed of it before we leave. And it's okay to say it openly. I highly appreciate it if you have one. Don't have to wait for people to split up and separate. No? Then we'll close. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.